From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
My name is Rob Snowhite, and this is my podcast about fly fishing education and lifestyle. This is episode 240 featuring Zane Lamprey. Adult beverages are ingrained in fly fishing culture and lifestyle, and Zane is my adult beverage drinking hero. He's also a great storyteller. And due to my buddy Patrick wearing one of Zane's t-shirts featuring Pleplius at the pool one night, I decided to reach out to Zane for a chat. You may want to skip this one if you have young ears listening. Zane is a world traveler, booze connoisseur, and an occasional angler. I want you to take out a pen and paper or maybe something on your phone to jot notes down with. What do you think a raw onion is used on the other side of the world for as a hangover cure? Write it down. You're going to check to see if you're correct later on. And in this episode, we're going to hear about some of Zane's travels, hangover cures which may or may not be legal depending on where you live, fly fishing in Montana, and a scary night of camping in Arizona. You can find more about Zane from his Instagram, Zane Lamprey. All right, so I'm going to start first here. We have Zane Lamprey. Zane, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Zane Lamprey. There we go.
Fantastic. And where are you today?
At home in Los Angeles.
All right, and you having a drink too? So you've got meetings afterwards. I have to smoke a turkey and make a sweet potato gratin. So I'm going to have a shot of whiskey for you now.
Okay. Yeah. Please. Actually, I think I probably would have had two, to be honest with you.
I feel good. All right, so Zane, we're going to go over some about you and some fishing, and then you've got a story about some natural disasters. But
sure,
you might have the fishiest name of anybody I've interviewed, and it actually dates back to the origin of the fish.
Do you know the origin of my name? Because I don't. If you did, I was going to be really impressed.
All right, I listened to the podcast.
No, I know, but the origin of my name.
No.
I mean, I didn't know you listened to the podcast. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But the origin, I guess the long story is I was always told that Lamprey, my last name. My brother says Lamprey. I say Lamprey. I think he says it phonetically because for some reason everyone always calls us Lamprey. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, so I was always told that we were like, it was French because Lamprey, whatever. And I was shooting an episode of 3 Sheets in Wales, one of the first episodes I ever shot. And I was our fixer, who's like we didn't need a translator, but usually they're a translator. They get the locations all set. They get all of your, everything dialed in for you, your hotels, all that kind of stuff. He was a professor of Welsh history and was impressed that I was Welsh. And I was like, no, I'm not Welsh. He's like, no, the name Lamprey, that's a Welsh name. That's like, and of course, this is, I go back home and look at my Facebook and just Google Lamprey, which I'd never done before. And most of the Lampreys are actually from Wales. But, and that would be great because it's kind of a nice name, whatever, it's a little different. But
it's a horrific organism.
Exactly. Then someone has to go along and discover this eel that attaches himself to the side of fish and sucks out their blood and their internal organs and then leaves them to die and then moves on to another fish. And so someone's like, hey, I discovered this amazing fish. I'm going to name him after me and ruin the name Lamprey for the rest of their lives.
And then we just think Ellis Island gave us the name Snowhite. It was in the 1890s. I never can comment on someone else's last name.
Dude, Snowhite is such an awesome name.
Yeah.
If you want, I will trade you.
We could do that. My wife didn't take Snowhite, so she might not take Lamprey. She would probably join us, but she's at work right now.
My wife reluctantly took Lamprey. So, because
my wife also
of,
a twin.
Of what it is. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I don't think my twin took the name of hers. But anyway, we're lucky. But what's funny is when I was in Portugal, they have these, where we have like the Shriners and the Rotary and stuff like that,
right?
The Lions Club. They have these gastronomic societies, and they're all built around a specific food. A little strange, but so the one that I went to was I went to a few. One was tripe, which is like the stomach lining of sheep or the intestinal lining. The other one was the Lamprey Gastronomic Society, and they gave me like a medallion, like an Olympic medal to wear around my neck that they all wear with their robes when they meet. Again, I never figured out what they do when they meet. And then in that same episode, I went and then had lamprey, the way that they prepare it, and how they prepare it is pretty horrific, to be honest with you. Even for something that's just such a mean animal, mean or whatever. They basically heat up a pan really hot. They hold the lamprey by, actually they have it suck onto their hand, and then and by the way, the size of this lamprey was about the size of a baseball bat, and they slice it from head to tail, and they use its blood. The blood fills the pan, and then they throw the lamprey in the pan and cook it like that. Pretty mean stuff. And then I tasted it, and it was one of the rare times that I actually threw up in the show.
Wow.
And and what's interesting is because it was just so much blood. I don't know the reason, but like it was just I ate it. It tastes like blood, and then at the end, I threw up, which is just weird. I never throw up. I don't have any like food issues, but this one just did not, because it was cannibalistic. That's probably why.
Tyrion Lannister was a big fan of lamprey pie.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I wish there was a photo of him eating it or something, or a photo of the lamprey so I could frame it somewhere.
Yeah, it just looked like a chicken pot pie. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you were to jump in an elevator with some stranger and they ask, so what is it you do? What would you tell them?
So interestingly enough, those conversations have never happened on elevators, but they have happened on a lot of flights, where you just start to, hey, so what do you do, and all that kind of stuff. And the problem with explaining what I do is that it's so multi-leveled that it becomes a long conversation. And so now when I am asked on an airplane, I tell them that I'm an accountant. It's just like, because I do some of my own books. Not really, but anyway. The answer of that, which could fill your entire episode, is I started doing a show called, well, let's see. I graduated from college, moved out. I had a degree in fine arts and an undergraduate, or a minor rather, in theater. And so I came out here to do acting, and then quickly realized that hosting was like a thing, and spent years trying to get a legitimate job. And one of the first real ones that I got was this show, 3 Sheets. And that took me around the world. And my objective was to basically learn about people and their culture by drinking with them. Whether it was going to a brewery or a winery or a distillery, or just going to a local pub, or going to someone's house, or whatever it is, like anything that was really unique beverage-wise in the region is what we used to sort of get to know these people. Because people loosen up even after one drink, sometimes too much after a few drinks. But so anyway, so that show went on for about 4 seasons. That network actually went off the air. Mark Cuban was a fan of the show, so then he had me do a show called Drinking Made Easy on his network, which was HDNet. So I did 51 episodes of 3 Sheets. I ended up doing 61 episodes of Drinking Made Easy, which was all shot in the U.S., maybe a few episodes in Canada, so we could call ourselves international. Then that channel went off the air, became a live music channel. So then I crowdfunded through Kickstarter a show called Chug, where I would travel around on a train at some point in the show, so we could use the double entendre. And then that was an international show, much like 3 Sheets. But one of the issues was I didn't want to get myself in any legal hot water with 3 Sheets, so I changed the format a little bit, and it just wasn't quite as fun. It was fine. It was a good show, but it wasn't quite as fun as the original. And so that ended up being acquired by National Geographic Channel and then by Netflix. And then 3 Sheets went on to Hulu. Then inside of that, I also did a show for Food Network called Half Fork Will Travel, a bunch of other shows. And then the most recent thing was I was contacted by Drink TV, which is a new platform, and they wanted to bring back 3 Sheets. They couldn't get the rights to 3 Sheets, so we did 4 Sheets. But we did the same format as 3 Sheets. And so it was a lot of fun. It was well received, and so we're waiting on the nod to more seasons of that.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing, which is sort of my bread and butter, is or rather my day to day, because those things come and they go, is that I launched a clothing brand back in like 2008. I just started doing T-shirts, graphic design T-shirts that I would wear on 3 Sheets and then sell those, and that went really well. And then I did more with Drinking Made Easy, and then I started to expand into sweatshirts, and then I started to not be interested in making, putting my logo on other people's crappy T-shirts, and so I started a company. Actually, then I did a crowdfunding for the Adventure hoodie, right, which raised $2 million on crowdfunding through Kickstarter and then Indiegogo, and then that launched the Adventure brand, and so now we have Adventure. ADV3 NTURE. The first E is a 3 because we plant 3 trees with every purchase. And we are now about to launch our so the company is doing really well. And then we're about to launch our Ecto division, which stands for Experiential Curated Transformative Outings. And it's basically our excursion division of Adventure. So not only are we outfitting you for the adventure, we're also providing the adventure for you. So we're doing trips next year like summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, the Amazon, Machu Picchu, hiking the Great Wall of China, like things like that, so we can take people along. And then I'm going to be shooting that for my ZanesWorld show on YouTube. And ZanesWorld is also the name of my podcast. See, it's long. Yeah. And we also foster cats. So there are 9 in the house. That God. Just happens to be the old gentleman right there. He's 16, and he's asking me to let him outside, but there's been a coyote around, so he's not doing it.
And you've got a monstrous dog.
So the only time that Seamus, our old cat, can go outside is when the dog is already outside. It's a fenced-in yard, but still sometimes the coyotes, and we're in the middle of Los Angeles, but believe it or not, we get coyotes that hop the fence and come to our yard. So, yeah, Bodie is an Irish wolfhound. He is about 170-something pounds. On his hind feet, he's probably about 6'4", 6'5".
What?
Yeah, he looks like a person in a Muppet, like a person in a Muppet suit.
Do you have a special car to transport him?
Yeah, an SUV. Okay. I did put him in the back of my buddy's convertible the other day, which is amazing. Just getting him in there, it's just like putting an old man in the back of a convertible.
Who's got more hair on their face, Steve or the dog?
Steve has more hair on his face, but Bodie, the dog, has more hair than literally any dog on the planet. It's just. And people are like, oh, is he hypoallergenic? Does he shed? No, he's not hypoallergenic. Yes, he does shed. And there's a Roomba that's pretty much like running full time in the house, picking up his hair.
My goodness.
Yeah. And then we have these rabbit air purifiers, which do an amazing job of masking the fact that we have any pets in this house. People often come in and are surprised. Oh, you have a cat? I didn't know. Usually it smells like a cat. Like, we actually have 9 cats. We have 9 cats and 9 cats and a monster dog. So
you can make 2 Voltrons.
We could. How many go into a Voltron? 5.
1, 2, 3. I think 5.
Yeah. So 2 Voltrons. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. One would be bigger. One would be bigger because one would have the dog in it. So one would be a bigger Voltron.
I've got some drinking questions now.
Yeah.
What's the best hangover remedy?
It is either Xanax or weed.
Okay.
Historically speaking, just because I mean, like I've gone out and tried everything in doing the shows that I've done. I've done, somewhere around 150 episodes. And by the way, each one is about 4 days of shooting, so that's about 600 days of shooting, and we probably shoot 2 scenes in a day. So it's somewhere around 1,000 times that I've sat with a camera at a bar and drank with somebody. And, sometimes those get a little loose, and sometimes the hangovers arrive. And so for the shows, at least for 3 sheets and 4 sheets, we did hangover cures. And we tried everything. Like every place has theirs. I'll tell you what, we just went to Santorini. If people go to, by the way, drinktv.com, they can watch 4 sheets for free. The network is a ad-supported network, so you can go there and watch the show at drinktv.com. We went to Santorini, and we were told by some old guys that the hangover remedy is cutting a raw onion in half and putting it under your testicles to rid yourself of your hangover. Did it work? No, it did not work. You just stunk like raw onions for the rest of the day. It was pretty horrible. It's almost like, come on, are you like literally like having a laugh at my expense? Like, no, that people really do that. I'm like, okay, that's why you stink. But yeah, but we've tried. Like, and I've actually dug into the science of it too. So the one thing is to sweat it out, right? So go to the gym, run, that kind of thing. Or to have spicy food, so you kind of sweat it out. And the problem is that one of the major side effects or the symptoms of a hangover is the dehydration. And so if you are I'm taking it back. I'm going to tell you what the ultimate cure is. If you have a headache as part of your hangover, you are dehydrated. That's literally like the membrane in your brain that just needs fluid. It's like the brain pulling away from your skull. Nice. And so if you go and you try to sweat it out or you eat spicy stuff or that kind of thing, then you are going to dehydrate yourself even more and make it kind of worse. And at some point, the hangover is just going to work itself through. Food, and again, one of the things you're getting from food is you're just getting your body is like now fighting some toxins. You're detoxing your body, so that food is going to help your stomach. But the dehydration aspect is basically the cure. And I'm taking back my other 2 because they actually don't really work that well. Is an IV with vitamins. I was in Miami with my wife, and we were at the South Beach Food and Wine Festival, and we had gone to this like Guy Fieri party the night before, and it got a little loose, and I wasn't saying no to anything, and so I just she's like, remember, I had the next day off, and she said, remember, we're gonna go and get Cuban sandwiches and mojitos, and we're in tomorrow morning, like you promised. I'm like, I'll be fine. And so woke up the next morning, and I was just in the roughest of shape. And so she's like, we got to go. And I was like, I can't. I just can't. She's like, so she scheduled a place in Miami. I forgot the name of it. And right there in South Beach, where they would hook you up to an IV with vitamins and, and like spa music, and you'd sit there in a massage chair. And I was like, all right, I'm basically I'm going to go through the motions. It's not going to work. And then I'm going to go back to bed for the rest of the day. But 25 minutes in that chair with the IV, or maybe it was the spa music, I was literally starving, and we went and got a Cuban sandwich and a mojito. It literally turned me around. My buddy who's a doctor is like, yeah, I kind of keep a few at the house for that reason. Which it in the grand scheme of things, it's the only thing, and I've researched it thoroughly. It's the only thing that I've found that's worked.
I need to open up some IV joints around college campuses.
They by the way, 100%. The way that they work is you have to be like an RN or a paramedic in order to be someone who administers that. And I think because of that, those people their hourly rate, for the person who runs that is higher than a normal rate. I don't think the cost of the IV is much at all. The vitamins not much at all. But the place in Miami was like a good deal. It was like $99, and it was like $129 with the extra vitamins. There's places out here in LA that like start at like $150, maybe to like $200, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just watch TV and have McDonald's for a few hours and just let it pass through my. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like when it starts to get that expensive, and then there's one that'll come to your house, and that's $300. But what I think is crazy about that is like, it's $300 per person. And let's say you have like a group of people, and it's like, there's 5 people, and we went out and we're whatever, and we all have hangovers, we could all use it. Like, we're not going to spend $1,500 to have this guy come over. It should be like a price for it should be $150 for the thing or $120 for the thing, and then it should be like a delivery charge of a home visit charge of like $200 or $100 per hour, whatever it is. So that if you have a bigger group, it's more appealing to the big group, and then everyone makes money. But they just haven't gotten that pricing down. But like, honestly, like what city do you live in?
We're just outside of DC.
DC. Well, yeah, you got some drinkers there.
Yeah.
That would work. Politicians like to drink.
The LSU bar, was the drinking the shot off the back as gross as it looked?
So I'm going to explain that, because you did a very classy job of summing up what happened.
Tastes like onions?
It was. Yes, exactly. I can safely say that I have no idea what it tastes like. And thankfully, Steve, who is my drinking buddy, my co-host and Drinking It Easy, he doesn't know either. So what this is called, this is a place called Fred's in Baton Rouge, LSU. And it is the epitome of a Brewha college bar, experience. They do something called the cracky sack, and it's almost the fact that they do this is one thing. In just explaining it is embarrassing. So what they do is, it's called the cracky sack. So you and your buddy, or whatever it is, out of some sort of rite of passage, one of you gets on the bar, shirt off, pants down to the ankles, and I mean like pants and underwear down to the ankles, butt facing, the crowd, and the person on the bar is handed a shot of and I think they use whiskey. I won't even say the name of the brand that they use, because I feel bad to be associated with this. So they take this famous American whiskey, maybe the most famous American whiskeys, and the guy in the bar pours it down over his head. So takes it over his head and pours it on the back of his neck. So the whiskey goes down his back, through his butt crack, and drips off of his balls. And his buddy, or whoever is taking the shot, is sitting there to catch the whiskey in his glass. And when it fills up, that person does a shot. Is that just the most vile thing? And you think it? I know. Yeah, throw up a little bit. It's okay. And then So then we ended up. We're like, come on, you do not really do that. Like, yeah, we're like, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it right now, because they were pre-funking when we got there. They were pretty hammered, which is fine. It was fun. And we weren't. So we're like, what are we walking into? And so they did it. And Steve was getting loose during the scene, and so he was the guy on the bar, and the guy in the scene, I think, or somebody else, you can watch it. It's Drinking Made Easy, and it's the Baton Rouge episode. The other guy took that shot from Steve's cracky sack. So, I mean, that is definitely you travel the world, and you think you're going to see some crazy things, and then the craziest thing you find is in Louisiana. I mean, maybe that does make sense. And I want to tell you that the other thing that, so in Santorini, along with the Onion, there's a place called Two Brothers Bar. And again, people can see this at Drink TV. Like this, so my wife and my friend Josh are the producers of the show, and they go and they vet the location, and they just say, they come back to me after their research and say, hey, here's 10 places we think we should go, and we all have a discussion about it. And they pitch me Santorini, and I was like, oh, that sounds great, or whatever. Wine was invented there. They grow their wine in a coil on the ground. They don't have like stakes and vines like you normally do, and other really cool things. And so, and then they kind of look at each other and they're like, and there's another place. I'm like, what is it? They're like, okay. So we don't know. We don't think you should necessarily go there, but you're going to want to until we tell you. That's why we didn't tell you till the end. But it's called Two Brothers, and there's something called the Headshot. And you basically put on a helmet, you take a shot, and then the bartender hits you over the head with a baseball bat. And I was like, okay, as a person, I don't think I want to do that. But visually, because you're taking people on a visual experience in the show, I was like, this is something that we have to do. I don't want to do it, but we have to do it. And when we ended up doing it, the owner did it, and he hit me like, dink, like so lightly on the head. I'm like, no, that's not going to cut it. And the bartender's like, I'll do it. I'm like, all right, fine. So my back was to the bar, face to the camera. I took the shot, and literally, like, you want to take the shot, put it down, and then boom. It was like just as I put the shot up and swallowed, the guy was standing on the bar, standing on the well of the bar, like, so he had some leverage, and he was a bigger guy, and he just cracked me. It wasn't a baseball bat, but it was a very thick dowling that was about the width, thicker than a broom handle. And he hit me so hard that I not acting, I collapsed. Like, I lost my legs, and I just sort of went down. So, it's good TV, and did I get a concussion? I don't know. But it's one of those things that your job, or, my job as a host of a show is that I have to give the best performance that I can. And that often means me suffering a little bit for whatever reason. If nothing's remarkable in the show, if every show doesn't have that moment of like, did you see the show last night? Can you believe that he did this? If it doesn't have that, it's just not worth watching.
Right.
So,
like spilling a drink on Frank Sinatra's daughter.
Like Steve and it's so crazy. So that was Drinking Made Easy, L.A. We got invited from it wasn't Nancy Sinatra. It was Tina Sinatra, and daughter of Frank. Went to his this old like restaurant that he used to go to, and the maitre d' was still the maitre d' from when Frank was there. The guy looked young, but he was maybe in his 60s, and I think he was there when he was in his 20s or whatever. He drove Frank home one day because Frank was too drunk, and brought him home and drove Frank home in Frank's Cadillac. And Frank's like, keep it, it's yours. And the guy's like, no, I'm not keeping your Cadillac. And so, it's all these stories that like Tina and the maitre d' were telling us about Frank. And it's funny that you do a very good job of transitioning in, because you're right, if things aren't remarkable, then they won't be memorable. If we just sit down and talk about Frank Sinatra and have a respectful drink, it's just like, it was cool, but it's not like you're drinking with Frank, So Steve's like finished his wine because they had Sinatra wine, like some Sinatra Estates wine. And so we were all sipping on wine. Again, I was trying to be respectful. Steve just drank his while everyone was telling stories, and he was like going to pour himself some more, but so I think he didn't seem like he was going too fast. He was like offering to pour for everyone else. And he went to, me, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And got to Tina, and she's like, no, I'm fine. He's like, no, take a little. And I think this is how it happened. You can watch it in the show because it's there. I think this is how it happened. And then she said no, and then somehow in that he ended up spilling her glass of wine. I don't remember if it was on the table or on her or whatever. And I was just like embarrassed. My wife, the producer, she was just completely mortified. And then yet what you get is an uncomfortable situation, but yet you walk away and you have an interesting story that you can tell forever. And it's that's just one of those things, like, that saying, it's like no good story ever came from eating a salad. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's just the thing about having a drink and especially having a drink with Steve. You can just be guaranteed that something's going to go wrong.
With all this traveling, you've been fishing in a couple episodes. How do you fish when you're traveling, or is it just not enough in the schedule?
I wish that I had time to fish. The first time I think I did like actual fishing in the show was when we were in Montana. But we just got some waders and we just got some rods and we went out there and we didn't know what we were doing and just went out there just as like B-roll. I mean, no, that's not true. We were trying to catch a fish because we did a competition at the end of every show, and Steve, we just did a competition between Steve and myself to see who could just catch a fish first. We didn't know what we were doing, so it just didn't work out. But then I was contacted by, I want to say Men's Health, but is it Men's Health or Men's Fitness? Yeah, Men's Health. I think Men's Health. Okay, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't want to say the wrong one, but it was a few years ago, and they were working with the Montana Board of Tourism, and so they wanted to shoot some 4 short episodes. I mean, like 2 minutes of me going and doing something in Montana and then going to a brewery afterwards, so that they can show that Montana has fun things to do, and then they also have fun breweries to go and have a drink at afterwards. So we went to each like part of 4 of the major cities of Montana. And so one of the things that they did was they had I wish I could remember where it is, and I'll give you this photograph if you want to use it. We basically started up the river and then got in a boat and worked our way down several miles down the river at this wonderfully leisurely pace and with an expert guide. And when we came to a place that he knew of as a good fishing hole, we would stop. We would either get out of the boat or stay in the boat or whatever it would be. And he just taught me how to fly fish. And it was just awesome. And what was crazy about it is that the pace of which they shot this show that they were doing was like, all we had to do all day was go and fly fish. You know what I mean?
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then after that, like maybe at 4 or 5, we went to a brewery and then sat and had a beer with the guy. And it's crazy because I was like, what are you guys looking for? Whatever. And like, so I'm trying to help them produce a little bit, just make the show the best that it can be. I also, in that show, went to 4 breweries, but I also did rock climbing, mountain biking, and I think there were 4, so I think there was something else, but I don't remember what it was. But when they finally sent those shows to me, the episodes, there wasn't even any talking. Like, I thought you wanted me because I'm like a comedian and I can sort of make fun situations, and I thought there was great footage and whatever. Those things were like 1 minute and 30 seconds. It was just so fast. You're just like, wow, I don't understand why you would make them so short. I guess they thought that the algorithms of where they were posting them on Facebook would make sense, but it was just a shame because we went out there and shot for like 5 days. 5 days to make several minutes. And then we were already out there, so my wife and I were like, all right, we're gonna stay here and go to Yellowstone and Grand Teton for another 5 days. But the fishing was really the highlight of that whole Montana trip, because it was just like, I don't know, it was very like, I guess at some point I would equate it to like golf. It's leisurely, you're in nature and that kind of thing. But when you're fishing, you're just more connected. And I'm a huge, environmentalist, animal lover, and I do anything I can do to like be outside. I live in Los Angeles, and I take every single opportunity to leave LA when I can. Like,
you're always in Yosemite. You got to be fishing that Merced River like Oprah.
No, I should. She fished it. Did she catch anything?
No, there was no water that summer. They filmed.
Oh. Well, what's that? What happens when there's no river? I mean, I'm sorry, no water. Obviously, there's a river.
They get eaten by like raccoons and animals. They just find them in little holes where they all just get schooled up, and then, they're just easy pickings. Pick them up and move them.
Okay, but how do they? So now Yosemite the Merced is running awesome. Does that now have fish in it? Is it because they stock it?
I have to go back to the fly fisherman article by Mickey Ware. that he just wrote recently. They probably headwaters. The eggs can tumble down. Then there's always the stories about birds dropping eggs from fish when they go from body water to body water.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. We were just talking about that with my clients yesterday, but no one knows if that's true. But you can dig a hole in a field and fill it with spring water, and in a year there'll be fish.
I've always wondered about that.
Yeah.
Always wondered about that. And I know that like sometimes but like for example, like a glacial lake. Like how are the fish there?
Yeah, these airplanes.
Really?
Yeah, you can watch video of the 1960s of just dropping buckets out of little propeller planes over high mountain Sierra lakes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's amazing how us as a population have just taken nature to our control. Yeah. I mean, I think I just think about like, like when there's the species, the natural species of the area are being repopulated. I think it's great, but like just back in the day, people didn't know what the hell they were doing. Bringing different animals, different parts, and that the entire balance was thrown off. But
let's put rabbits in Australia where there've never been rabbits.
And then cats, and then too many mice, and then now there's cats, and now there's too many cats and too many mice, and then nothing to eat them, and then there's the cane toad, which was eating the grubs. The cane toad one. So it's basically in Africa when they're growing their sugarcane, they don't have a grub issue because they have the cane toads. So like the geniuses are just like, all right, in the Caribbean, they're like, we're going to get cane toads because we have grub issues. They got the cane toads and like, this is amazing. There's no grubs. The harvest is so much better and all this kind of stuff. And then so Hawaii was like, what worked? The cane toads? All right, we'll do the cane toads too. We'll take some. And so they did it. And then the Caribbean is like, oops, hold on a second. There's no natural predator to the cane toad.
They're poisonous, right?
And they're poisonous to eat. So anything that eats it dies. Yeah, exactly. So then Hawaii is like, wait, what? No, we already did it. Oh shit, what? Just like it's, and so now there's like huge cane toad problems anywhere that they grew sugarcane. And anyway, it's just this whole big mess that's been created by us. But look, I think I love to fish. I love just being out there. The great thing about fishing is it just gives you a reason sometimes just to go out there and connect with yourself, connect with nature, maybe connect with a friend. It's like one of those things about like, the going in. It's like for me, having people on my podcast, it's like there's somebody I'm a fan of. I'm going to have that person on my podcast because what else am I going to do? If I didn't have a podcast, what would I be like? Hey, you want to go get a drink? It's just, I don't know you. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, but they come and have a podcast, and afterwards they're like, "Hey, let's go get a drink." It's like
I fished with my brother for the first time in about 20 years today. It was awesome.
Today you did. Where'd you fish? Where'd you fish today?
The local lake we grew up on, out in Reston, Virginia.
Okay.
I had They all just took turns in the drift boat.
Oh, that's
fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. My nephew's going into freshman year of high school on Monday.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
He's huge. So speaking of nature, I know you're pressed for time. You were in a pretty crazy environmental flood last year.
Right. Yes.
Do you leave us with that story?
Yeah, I will leave you with that. It's great. So I went into Havasu. So not Lake Havasu, but Havasu Pai Indian Reservation. If anyone is listening, Google Havasu Falls, and then you'll just be like, "What?" Either you know it, or you'll never forget it when you see a picture of this place. It's on a reservation in Arizona, in a part of the Grand Canyon. There's a lottery, basically, like on February 6th or something like that. To like, you have to go online at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and then try to get online, try to get passes to a certain weekend, and you plan your whole summer around it. And then they sell out like within the first few hours. And so we went in with a group. There was 4 of us, and we hiked in. It was about a 12-mile hike. It was, and so you leave around 4 a.m. 3:30, 4 a.m. because you don't want to be hiking. It's in the middle of summer. You don't want to be hiking in the desert. It gets to like 120. You can't be hiking in direct sun for 12 miles like that. So you leave around 3, and then you get there around like 8 or 9. And so one of the people in our party, I won't say her name because it's Erica. She was wearing like sneakers, so she was kind of like slower than the rest of us who were dressed with proper footwear and bags. And so we had a sorry, my wife's just trying to hand me something. Sorry. So so we hiked in. We got there about 9. It was a pristine day. We went and the camp. So when you get in, you're between two walls of a canyon. They're 1,000 foot. And the river, there's a waterfall, and then like a river that runs through it, which is crystal clear, blue, in fact. And then there's another waterfall at the end. So the one bigger side had too many people in it. So we ended up going to the just crossing the river, which is up to our knees, and then went and set up our tents and stuff over there, had some food, and then went back to the waterfalls to play and stuff like that. So we get back to our campsite like around 4:30. We have some food, and then again, it's just a perfect day. We're all and we have some dinner. It's like 5:30 or 6, and we just like it starts to rain a little bit. We're like, all right, so let's just get in our tents and then it starts to rain a little harder. So we kind of go out and just grab a few things that we don't want to get wet. We're in our tents, and we're all sort of like, 20 feet apart from each other. And then it just keeps coming harder and harder and harder, like really hard rain. And now my wife's like, sitting in the tent, and she's like, look, there's all this water running underneath our tent. It feels like a water bed, and then it's pooling in the corner. I was like, what's going on? And I ripped unzip. Try to make it sound dramatic. I rip open the door and I look outside, and there's water coming down the canyon walls from everywhere. And I get out and I'm like, holy shit, like this is really coming down. And the river has already risen like 2 feet. And it's maybe another 2 feet it's going to be at our tents. And I was like, okay, I kind of go over to my buddy's tent. I'm like, hey, things are looking pretty messed up. He's like, well, it'll probably pass. And I'm standing out there, and all of a sudden the debris field from the front of, like, when there's a flash flood, the debris field is that first thing that comes down. It comes down, and behind it, the water is now at the height of our tents. So now I'm like screaming to everyone in our group, the 3 couples, and then I'm running along to other groups and like banging on their tents, and I'm screaming as loud as I can for the entire campsite of hundreds of people. Only a handful of those people could hear me because it's raining so hard and whatever. I'm like telling everyone, get out of your tents, flash flood. I'm yelling it. And people are now like getting out of their tents, and they're just like, holy cow. So on the other side, it was lower. That all of their tents washed away. Our tents ended up washing away. We climbed to higher ground. There was another, and then we dragged like one tent, and then helped another 2 families up, and so sort of on this like higher ground. But if it goes any higher, there's nowhere for us to go because we're up against the cliff. And so at night there was another storm. The water gets even higher,
and you're exposed the whole time, cold, wet.
What's crazy? It's like, it's in the dead of summer, but we are shivering wet. We don't have anything to lay on to sleep, which is like, we don't have any dry clothes. Our tents got washed away. We don't have anything. Wow. We just have a few of our bags, but they're all soaking, so there's nothing dry and whatever. So the next morning, some of the locals come down, and they're yelling across the river, there's another big storm coming. We have to get out. And we're like, how? There's nowhere. Like the river, you can't cross that river. We would die. And they said, just go down further and find a place to cross. That was it. They didn't offer any other solution, send in a helicopter, nothing. And so we went down the river and found a place where it was so wide that we could actually go through as a group of probably at this point like 15 people, all holding hands and catching each other when someone slipped, and then managed to get across. And then at that point we got airlifted out, which was pretty amazing. So it's funny. At no point did I really feel like my life was in danger, because we could always climb a little higher, but it was pretty scary and pretty exciting. But life is a daring adventure or nothing at all, and that's what that was.
Yeah.
So it's cool. People, if they want to see it, they can sift through my my Instagram and find the video of that because I put it all together, including the helicopter part.
Where can people find podcast, Monkey Rum, everything else?
Just go to my Instagram. That's the easiest place. Just go to it's Zane Lamprey. Just go there, and there's links to the podcast and anything that I'm doing. I announce all my stuff there, so you can follow me on Instagram. You'll find everything that I'm doing that's cool.
All right, and then you're going to go to a meeting drinking water now?
Now I'm gonna go to a meeting, but I'm gonna have drinks later for sure. Okay. Just
We're debating. We have our Thanksgiving themed party at the neighborhood pool tonight. I've got to go smoke a turkey and make a sweet potato gratin. It looks like we actually have our first rainy day in about 2 or 3 months.
Embrace it. Right?
I hope it blows over tonight because I want to get my drink. I got clients at 8 though, so got to put my boat in at 7 to go pick them up.
Well, rock and roll. I love what you do, and thanks for having me on the podcast, and we'll catch up after my next major natural disaster.
Yeah, and let me know if you're ever passing through here. We'll wet a line.
Done deal.
You'd be surprised the urban fly fishing in DC.
I want to do it.
All right. Give Mel a high five for me.
You got it, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Rob.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com. This podcast is brought to you by Freestone Productions at freestoneproductions.com.